Let's just wing it.
Okay. Do you want me to say 3, 2, 1?
Yeah, I like when you do that.
Here we go. And 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gary and Kenny Show. Thank you for joining us. I am Gary Kroeger, and I am joined by Kenneth Seisler.
And where am I?
Well, I didn't say that I'm in Cedar Falls and that you're in Calabasas this time because I figure I always say that. And is it really that interesting?
It's not that it's that. It's just the first time I actually have an answer when you ask me about Calabasas.
Oh, you have an answer. Okay. Meaning what?
Did you know that Calabasas means pumpkin?
Pumpkin.
And I say that because earlier in the day you did call me pumpkin. But yes,
yes,
it
I
does.
Did. Calabasas. So
yes,
Bassus
apparently the word cala means pump, and assus means kin. I don't know. Pumpkin. This is what's in the history books.
But Calabasas is Spanish for pumpkin.
Pumpkin or gourd, and I'm not really sure what a gourd.
But why? Because you're in a dry, arid place. It wasn't a pumpkin.
Apparently, somebody was riding around here, and this goes back to the early 18th century.
Did you Google this?
Yes, of course I Googled it.
Okay.
You think this is just...
Well, I don't know. Maybe there's some...
I was at a dinner party.
Right.
Anyhow, and apparently they came around. They said, I don't know if they saw a pumpkin or they said this would be a great place to grow pumpkin. I'm not really sure what happened in that regard. But that is the origination of... If you ever hear somebody say, I live in Calabasas, you can say, oh, pumpkin.
Pumpkin.
Yes.
Well, but I don't want to belabor this, but it makes no sense because I've been there. I wouldn't think
I
of
asked
pumpkins
you about
there.
Waterloo. It made no sense either.
Well, there's water.
And you use the water as your loo? Is that what you're trying to say? That everybody said, hey, where do we go pee? How about use the water loo?
Loo is one of those words like skip to my loo. It's one of those things like...
It's also go pee in the loo. You can skip to your loo, but you can also pee in the loo.
All right, we've taken this too far.
Okay, well, you're the one that didn't want to belabor, and here you are belaboring.
Well, we don't have one of our celebrity guests this time, but I got to tell you, not that I love our guests and I love talking to them. I love all of the conversations we have. I kind of like it when it's a show with just the two of us.
You mean like a date night?
Well, it is sort of a date night with you, Pumpkin.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
I don't know. Maybe we could watch a movie?
I like what you're wearing.
The blue. Yes. It brings out my eyes.
Yeah, I never really think about it, but you have pretty blue eyes, don't you?
Oh, now with the pumpkin and the pretty blue eyes. Boy,
I was wondering where the show would go,
long.
And now we know.
Okay, go ahead.
My son, my 22-year-old son, might join us. He may or may not. He might pop up on his cell phone.
My mistress might join us. She might just pop up on the thing.
We'll see what happens. Behind you. We'll see what happens.
Whatever.
But if because I asked my son to, because I said, look, Kenny and I are doing a show, and it's just the two of us. If you came in, I would really like his perspective.
Perspective meaning, what are the kids doing? Explain to the old people.
What are the kids doing?
What do the kids want? What do they like?
No. I mean, seriously, I would like his perspective. It's not like we don't talk because he lives with me, and we'll get into those details in a moment. But we never really talk about, okay, when I was 22, I don't think I was frightened by everything on the horizon. We weren't pulling the masks back out like we're doing right now because of a new variant. I mean, I don't know what's going on there in the land of pumpkins. But here... I'm
the variant.
You're the variant. But here, you go back into the grocery store, people are putting their masks on again.
Yes, that's what's happening out here as well. Exactly right.
I mean, it's because of the
unvaccinated.
The epidemic of
and I'm going to come out and say it. I hate the unvaccinated.
I hate what they're doing.
Well, that's what I mean.
I hate their ignorance.
Yes, that's what
I hate their stubbornness.
Yes,
I hate the fact that they...
It could turn into one of those worlds where, a sci-fi movie in the future where you have like the warlocks who live underground and the people that live above the ground.
Right.
You're going to have.
Which one will we be?
I'm hoping the vaccinated get the above ground.
No,
we don't have to wear masks. I don't know.
But like the zombies take the free world. We move underground to protect ourselves. I mean, that's kind of like with the Matrix. I see us having to be the ones living underground.
We should buy underground real estate right now. We should buy underground real estate right now and get in there before anybody else does.
Get in there before. We might be onto something. Where would you go first? Where would you tunnel?
If I had to go and tunnel, this is a tough question. Let me think. Let me just scan the globe in my mind.
Well, you can't tunnel where you are because there's no foundational earth.
Foundational. There's no foundation. Are you telling me where I live I have no foundational earth?
No, it's great for pumpkins.
What kind of thing is that?
Not for foundation. You don't have basements. We have basements here.
Well, we don't have basements because it's too hard to dig.
That's my point.
No, I mean because we're lazy.
Okay. All right, I'll accept that.
Yeah.
I'll accept that.
Yeah.
It's not our fertile black earth here. It's the fact that we're just simply more motivated.
Let's talk about fertile black earth. Why don't you just, I don't know why, but I did want to talk about the fact that you were just in Maine.
Yes. Yeah.
And I had real Maine envy. Was it beautiful? Was it magnificent? Oh, well, just the idea is, like, how much was a lobster?
$24, pound and a quarter. No, pound and a half.
A pound and a half was $24?
Yeah.
Okay, that's almost like half price what we would have to pay out here.
Without a doubt. If I were to get first of all, it's not going to be a live Maine lobster here in the lieu of water, but it's still, I pay $50 for that size of lobster.
And it's the end. And out here, the other thing with all the climate change, we're killing all of the clams and oysters, which I love.
Did you have oysters? We'll get into that. First of all, that's where my wife has vacationed for 50 years, or her entire life. That's where her family goes. So, and every year I haven't gone. And it's because I've been busy. I ran the restaurant when she was gone. And at the same time, family reunions I find frustrating because you're always just I'm always running out of energy, and the card game just started, and I just wear out. What are we all doing today? Well, how about...
Because you don't pace yourself, Gary.
Well, I probably don't pace myself, but I'm probably so selfish that I just kind of want to do my own thing as opposed to, we're all going...
I was going to say selfish, but then I thought pace was probably a nicer way to put it. But go ahead, you're selfish.
But then she said, my family's going to start thinking that you hate them. And I go, you know what? You're right. So I went. And long story short, it was magnificent. Now, I'd been to Maine before, but I'd never stayed on the craggy coast. Literally out my window was a lighthouse. Every little hamlet, fishing village, the lobstermen. You could go anywhere and get a pound and a quarter for $24 of, fresh lobster, oysters, clams. They're all on those rustic docks with, salty air. And everybody's wearing a flannel shirt. It's always a little misty. Yeah, there he is.
Oh, there he is.
Well, we're figuring it out.
Oh, okay.
Wow, you look good.
So you interrupted your father's Maine story. Were you also in Maine?
No. It was just
I was not. I was not, unfortunately.
Now that we have my son, ladies and gentlemen, this is Chris Kroeger, my 22-year-old, my eldest son, who's sitting outside our house. So I had a fabulous time in Maine. In fact, wherever I go when I have a good time, even if I don't, I look around thinking, I could live here. Oh, that could be my coffee shop. And these little fishing hamlets, I could be the old guy in a fishing hat and, and name my boat My Rules Only. And
I was just thinking about going for a vacation, Gary. I wasn't probably
not living there.
No, but I just thought maybe I'd get some good, seafood. But enough about us. Let's find out what the kids are thinking, right, Gary?
In a second. I'm going to segue here.
All right.
Because here's what happened. And I'm telling this because there are people that go through this stuff. I take medication because I have high blood pressure. Largely it's genetic.
That's right. Blame others.
Right.
Old Nathaniel Kroeger had high blood pressure. But I have high blood pressure, and it got very, very scary high last year. COVID, sudden unemployment after 17 years. Those are things that can cause stress. And so I went on to blood pressure medicine, and I also started taking an antidepressant because the doctor said, hey, this is going to help the whole cocktail of calming you down. And it worked.
Good. But
it also robs you of your libido. This is the personal stuff I'm willing to share, and hopefully it doesn't embarrass my wife, but it robs your libido. So
Chris, are you okay so far with this?
Anytime
if you're feeling uncomfortable, just will you use this? Do you have a safe word?
We'll go with pineapple.
Yeah. Pineapple. Okay.
All right. All right. He hasn't said pineapple yet. So again, I forgot my meds. I was excited to go on this trip. I went, I got there and go, oh, shit, I forgot my meds.
This is like an episode of Criminal Minds.
Yeah, well,
that's how they all start.
And I take 4. So it's a cocktail of a lot of things doing to my serotonin uptake inhibitors and blah, 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 blah. I forgot them. But I thought rather than call the doctor and have an emergency prescription sent to the New Harbor pharmacy, I thought, you know what? I want off this stuff because I don't like what it does. Okay. So I'm just going to wean off.
Right.
Well, I was fine.
Right.
Fine another day. Fine another day. Mm-hmm. Then the 3rd, 4th day, I started getting dizzy, and they're called brain zaps. So I flew home with the brain zaps, and I thought, well, to get rid of these, I need to go back onto my meds. Well, that's not what you do.
No.
So I went from all these meds to none to back to the meds, and I became psychotic. I couldn't stand. I would pass out.
No, I'm following this. I do have a question. You started off in saying that when you got on the meds, one thing it affected was your libido.
Yeah.
And then you got off the meds, and I'm just curious, did libido come back?
Well, I didn't. The libido didn't have his wife with him when I was fully kind of off the meds. When I was going through the withdrawals, the libido.
So you couldn't find anybody. You couldn't find anybody else.
I don't go looking for anyone else.
Of course not. I wouldn't with your wife, Shannon. She's magnificent. You can't
you're
on perfection.
You're very kind.
Nevertheless, your timing was off. If your intention
timing was off.
Yes, you might not have experienced this psychotic thing because what was happening is when you went off the meds, your blood started to look for other places to go.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So it was like,
and it didn't find my head.
Right. It didn't find your head, so it would usually just go down to below the belt.
All right. So anyway, I got home, and my son is off with his girlfriend in Galena, Illinois, and I'm home.
Oh, is that where Ulysses S. Grant's house was?
That's exactly where it was.
I went there.
Yes, the home of so I'm alone, and I can't do anything. I can't move. I'm crazy. I'm giggling, and it's just insanity.
It's a good thing you're alone.
Well, except that I couldn't feed myself or anything. So I got a hold of my son, or he called me. And he came right home, didn't you, son?
No, I was sitting in Galena, and my girlfriend's grandparents invited Gary to come and enjoy dinner with them. They're only a couple hours away. It's about a 2-hour drive from where we're at here in Waterloo. So I sent him a text message that morning and said, Julia's grandparents would love to have you out here. It's right next to the Aldrich house. They're like a block away from the Ulysses S. Grant house. I know you'd love it out here. Why don't you come down for a day? And he sent me a text back that said, I really have not had a great couple of days, so I think I'm going to stay here. And I don't hear that very often from him. So I figured something had to be wrong. And I get a text from him that says, so don't tell anybody about this, but I may have...
Now I'm telling everybody.
Said, I may have been psychotic for a minute. And I said, well, in that case, I think I can tell them that I need to go back home tonight. I said, he's getting lonely, and I don't want to leave him there for too long. He has separation anxiety.
And his libido is increasing.
Yeah. And his libido is increasing.
How could you identify that you were psychotic? What would be the thing that you're sitting there going,
maybe psychotic is a misuse. No, and my son, the future psychologist, will answer this question about serotonin uptake inhibitors and et cetera, et cetera. It wasn't psychotic in that I thought that there were pink flying elephants around the house or that I should pick up a gun and stab the neighbors. But things aren't right.
Psychotic.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. I was the good psychotic in that nothing smelled right, looked right, couldn't stand without passing out.
Really? You passed out?
And again, some people will understand. I mean, I probably experienced this worse than most people, but anybody that's gone on and off of antidepressants can tell you about the brain zaps. When your brain is calling for something it's no longer getting for free, it goes bing, 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 bing. And that starts to make you feel crazy, and you wonder if it's ever going to stop.
Well, Jews have always had that problem. If we're not getting something for free, Bing, 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 bing.
And if I made that joke, I'm anti-Semitic.
Of course not. Of course not. You couldn't.
But Chris, you were explaining to me the serotonin uptake inhibitors. And those of you who are watching for this kind of information, here's an opportunity. Take some notes. Explain it like you did to me.
The case whenever you give you could make the same argument for like Flintstone gummies with vitamins that you take. Once you give your body the option not to do something, so when you're taking a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, you're making it less work for your brain to accept certain amounts of serotonin. And if you take yourself off of that, your brain, it was used to the crutch, it was used to the handicap, right. It was okay with it. And once you take that away, it doesn't want that to be the new normal anymore. So it'll make you feel like you're going crazy.
But why did Gary say that even when he went back on it, you're not supposed to do that? What are you supposed to do?
Well, you're really not supposed to try and wean yourself off on your own, period. You're supposed to do that with the help of a trained medical professional. But when he stopped for 5 days, his body had just gotten used to not having it anymore. So he's going to start going through withdrawal. And then when he gave himself an SSRI again, it was just as his body was getting used to not having it, so it threw him right back the other direction, and now it has too much. So now your brain thinks it's not normal again.
I could hear my synapses saying, "What the fuck? What the fuck?"
Wow, yeah, you know, could I recommend a hobby, Gary?
Yeah, please.
I think I don't know what else to say. All right, what are your other issues?
But here's the thing. So now
you promised no talk about colonoscopy, right?
I didn't. I haven't brought it up. It's a thing. You know. Okay, we'll segue this because a lot of people are going on to antidepressants. This COVID year has made things difficult. So I know there are people who are listening or watching right now going, "Oh, wow, good information. Glad the young kid came on." Okay. But now that we have you, Chris, I want to say this. I want to explain to people. Chris and I live in a big house that used to have my whole family, but my wife got a great job in Chicago, so we have a little place there, and we go back and forth. But a lot of the week is just me and Chris here in this big house.
Mm-hmm. Is this a call for help?
Chris, what's the word? Pineapple? But here's the thing, Chris. I'm so, as you are of your children, Ken, I assume, but I've heard you say nice things, and you have pictures of them behind you. My children are wonderful. They're kind people. They're smart. They're funny. Chris is certainly no exception. You're the flagship of just great Kroeger-ness. Oh. And I'm so proud of you. Now, that being said, you're the shittiest roommate. Outside of the fact that you came to help me, and I really appreciate that, you're a pig. You're a slob.
Is this an intervention?
This might be.
It could be.
I told him that he brought up, cleanliness and stuff like that. As a young person, you kind of just get to play the card. Well, Dad, the whole house is a laundry bin. The whole house is a laundry bin if you're depressed enough. So I think I might just start leaving my clothes on the floor.
Well, I do.
I will say this, Gary. When you were younger, at his age, the thing that I mean, now I do clean up. But the idea of leaving dishes in a sink overnight, I never had a problem with when I was younger.
How about for 3 months?
3 months?
Well, I go do the dishes. I do Chris's dishes.
Fully exaggerating.
I do Chris, and I probably, this was wrong of me, and parents are going to say, what a horrible father, embarrassing your son on a program like this.
I knew what I was signed on to.
I've tried to shame you into cleanliness, but I went to tell him, hey, we want to have you on the show if you want to stop in. And I opened his door. There's penicillin growing. I mean, there's just...
Well, you know what's going to happen. It happened to me. It's probably happened to you, too. He's going to get married. And his wife, no matter how much she says, I don't want to change him, he's perfect just the way he is. He's going to wake up one day and realize that he's going to, first of all, he's going to want sex.
Yeah.
And have to clean up. Right?
You got to, yeah.
Yeah. You're going to want maybe dinner, or maybe she'll make you a sandwich. Right. You think you're going to get a sandwich and you're not going to help clean up? No, you're going to have to clean up. So that's what's going to happen, Gary, until he's married and he has to trade cleanliness for certain things. that's when everything will change.
And I'm sure.
Thank you. Next.
we're on with Ken Size. But so, Chris, let me ask you a question, a serious question. This is the kind of question, this is the stuff we talk about, but I think it's important. You're 22 years old. You're going to graduate in a year or so and start your career. My life and Ken's life was different when we were your age. It's kind of, we looked at the world as an oyster, to bring back the main reference.
Shellfish, right?
Right.
We weren't worried about, an epidemic of the plague. We weren't worried really about the economy being a seesaw or collapsing. We weren't.
And none of that had to do with the fact that we were high. But go on, Gary.
Well, I mean, we had Nixon, but even Nixon seemed soft compared to Trumpism.
Yes.
What's this world look like for you?
I think a good way to put this, this is perfect. So up until, I'm 22. I haven't really lived a life yet. But I will say, from being able to understand social interactions and anxiety, I would say probably around 12 years old, and you become a teenager, 13, I had never truly experienced what it was like to be anxious or have a panic attack. I'd been nervous before. I went to school to be an actor. You'd get up in front of people, and you made it your career to let people judge you for half an hour and then tell you what you did wrong. You have to be crazy to want to do that every day. And I got up every morning and said, yeah, that's what I want to do. It wasn't until March of 2020, right in the swing of COVID, that I had experienced my first panic attack of my entire life at 20 years old, just before I turned 21. And it was terrifying because it came out of nowhere. It didn't really make any sense to me. I didn't know what was going on.
Was your dad sleeping while this happened?
You were out of town. I was home alone.
Okay.
You were in Evanston or something like that. Or it was just when people were out, because I knew I was alone, and it was just this overwhelming fear of something's about to happen, even though nothing was happening. After that had happened, it was a few months of learning to cope with this new feeling of not knowing what was going on. And I think a big part of that was COVID and me finally realizing, well, I was in Los Angeles for the last 3 years. Then COVID took away all my jobs. It's not like I was making an immense amount of money while I was out there anyway. I've racked up student loan debt. The only foreseeable future that I had now that COVID had hit was to go back to school and spend more money. And in the midst of that, we had that whole financial aid debacle where we had to fight the school to even get the money.
All right, but let me interrupt you for a second there, Chris. Let me interrupt.
Yeah.
COVID aside, none of that sounds completely very different from anything that anybody goes through from 18 to 23 years old.
Right. No, I disagree completely.
Well, I mean, I do think the world is different, but in what you're listing, though, of fear of jobs and
but all of those things, the COVID was seismic in the way it shut down everything. We had nothing that traumatic in our lives ever. That literally Chris, everything, whatever dream you had is suddenly put in a different direction.
Right.
I don't know if in our generation, if you had a dream to do something, there really was nothing like this that would stop you from pursuing that ambition.
Well, no, I think completely agree with that.
Right, that I think is unbelievably dramatic.
I agree with that. But Chris, my point is you kind of weren't mentioning that. You just put COVID on the list. To me, to Ken's point, it was a seismic fear. When's this going to be over? Will it ever be over? Should I bother getting a career? I mean, I'm just wondering what that led to your attack.
That was the only solace I could take in COVID, because it was this. I mean, it was as if the world had ended because nobody knew when it was going to stop. For a while, I generally considered that this would be the new normal, is that the world would be this hyper germ phobic, but for good reason, but this constant struggle for health and cleanliness because we now have this super virus that had changed the dynamic of what was socially acceptable. And the only way I could find some kind of way to calm down was doing that, was deciding to go back to school. And I truly thought to myself, well, I had this, beginning of life crisis, which most people I assume have at around 18 and 20 years old, where they're going, well, I'm going to do this. I'm not a kid anymore. But I was sitting there going, well, I had a plan. The idea was to starve for a while, but now that's gone. I mean, I was a singing waiter, a stage manager, and a
Chris,
working actor.
my question is, all of a sudden you're hit with this anxiety panic attack, something
Right.
that you said you'd never really experienced before.
Experience.
What did you have? Did you feel it was okay for you to open up and ask not only your parents, but also your peers to talk about this stuff? Or did you feel as though you kept it to yourself?
One of the first things I did was I talked to Gary. I talked to my dad and my stepmother about it because it was terrifying. I'd never.
So you
known
were
that.
okay opening up about it, which is great.
I was
Because when
okay
I was a kid, I basically learned very early on, don't tell my parents anything because they're going to freak out.
Sure.
But it's great that you had somebody you could feel open enough to say, okay. So did they help alleviate some of the anxiety?
At the same time, in opening up about it, I don't think I really ever reached out for help. I kind of just made them aware that this was happening. And I tried pretty seriously, I mean, fairly vehemently to do it on my own, which is probably a mistake, all things considered. I probably should have used some of those help networks like my father or my mother, any of that. There were days where I mean, it was COVID, so it's not like we were going to go anywhere. I'd walk outside, I'd sit in a lawn chair in a beautiful summer's day, and I wouldn't be able to take in any of it. Everything was dread of, I don't know what's about to happen. And you know,
the consequences of this on people's mental health. I have a friend who has a 15-year-old daughter, and we were just discussing the horror it has been for a 15-year-old girl going through this incredibly sensitive time, not to have a social life. I mean, it's really impacted people in a way that's
I have a young stepdaughter and Chris's younger brother, 14, 15, 16 years old. And no social life. But I'm trying to carve out a point here and to ask a question. Because where I was going, when I was your age looking ahead, there was some darkness and there was lots of questions. But I basically looked at life as, oh, my God, I can't wait to get into this thing. The future is infinite. I mean, I had that as part of my matrix. Couldn't wait to see every day and what would happen. A lot of that seems to have been taken from your generation. And now that we're actually experiencing a little bit of a variant epidemic, what's your feeling now about your future?
Well, now you're really going to put him in an anxiety attack. What the fuck was that, Gary?
Hey, I've got plenty of serotonin uptake.
Why didn't you just say you're doomed?
Right.
No, because I know, I'm. This is somewhat rhetorical, and I know some of these answers because my kid and I sit and we have a glass of wine in the evening. Right. But I like you to.
But I'm going to go shoot myself. So if I'm not back in an hour, I was successful.
Ask Dr. Seisler. You're fantastic.
Oh well, thank you for that.
But I'm sort of looking at your perspective, and let me put this little feather in your cap, because I know you went through this tremendous anxiety attack, and you had another issue that your wonderful stepmother was able to help you through. But I've watched you in the last 6 months, end of COVID, really, blossom. Your focus, I know you're going back to school. You've changed your career. You're excited about it. You're an encyclopedia of knowledge that I don't have. You're in a great relationship. You work hard.
Oh, now you're trying to build yourself back up after telling them all this other stuff.
This kid picked up a guitar for the first time about 5 weeks ago.
Okay, but get your question. Get your question.
Okay, well, that's the question. You've made this change. Is this just your way of protecting yourself, or is this a new armor to move forward?
I'd like to say, really, I mean, you don't know. It's a good quote, I think, even from The Office or something like that. I wish we knew when we were in the good old days, when we were in them, because they're only the good old days. Right. I don't think I can give you a concrete answer as to what it is and why I'm doing it now. It's kind of just the way that I was pushed by this whole system as it is, and I tried to do the best with what I had. I mean, the reason I got the guitar was to stop myself from making the mistake of buying a gaming console. So that's where I put the $500 rather than putting it towards something that I'd be using. Sure, I'd be using it. Wouldn't be as productive. Wouldn't be nearly as fun to bring out at family gatherings.
The thing is, Gary, a lot of things that you brought up about the optimism we had as a generation is that the idea of going to college and going to getting a job and getting a home were all doable. Those opportunities exist,
right?
But they no longer exist for the younger generation.
And education was more affordable.
I have the same right, and I have the same issue with my son, who does very well. But the truth of the matter is, the idea of him being able to buy a nice house and in Los Angeles, doesn't seem plausible to anybody. We just don't know how a young person could get into the housing market when an entry-level home is $1 million.
Well, okay, that's a great thing to ask a question, because Ken's right. I went to Northwestern, and my debt at the end of it was about 1.5 years of 1 year of school for you, right?
Sure.
So, do you look at this monstrous, crippling debt and the inability?
Here he goes with your life is.
I'm going to bring you down again.
Yeah.
But you have to change your perspective. Is that your perspective, or do you have sort of those dreams? Is $1 million a starter home? Was that what 100,000 was to me?
It's hard because we live in a society and an economy where rather, instead of solving world hunger, we have a bunch of billionaires racing penis rockets into space.
There's the tagline for this episode.
Penis rockets in space.
Penis rockets into space.
It's not in my plan, and that's really unfortunate. I'd love to be able to say that I have a set plan. I can look 5 years into the future and say that I'll have a degree, a steady job, and a house. I probably shouldn't use a statistic that I can't quote the article on, but I had read, could be totally wrong, that the statistic of kids 18 to 24, the usual college age, the rate at which kids are living at home with their parents is about 50% higher than it was 20 years
there's
ago.
no question of that.
We have
families are living right.
Great Depression.
I see with people, families are living together. They're going with their wife and their spouse and their number of kids, and they're joining all their resources to buy a bigger house so they could all live together. So everybody's under that one thing. Yeah, these things are dramatic. What the future? I mean, I do a lot of trying to think what the future is going to be because I have a grandson now. And so it's always everything.
That you don't masturbate around?
No, I would not. I didn't think you. Anyhow, but I think about all the things like, he'll never see money. He won't be having $1. There'll be no reason for a coin. He'll never see a dime. Because we won't make dimes. Why would we need them? All of the things. Is he ever going to need a key? You don't need a key anymore to open doors. You're not going to leave any of that. You just go on this list of things that are not going to be around and what's going to hold for the future.
Learn to drive.
Right, all of those things. But the thing that I most worry about, the thing that is in my lifetime, all we're talking about now is climate and how it's affecting our lives. When my grandson, 50 years from now, I can't even fathom what the weather's going to be.
And do you know that our skies are dulled by your fires?
Our fires, yeah. No,
it got into the jet stream, and our sunset is orange glow. But
so, Chris, I just want to throw in, besides all of the problems and anxiety that you have as far as the future is concerned, you're also going to have to deal with that one.
Right.
I hope I have been helpful.
Well, now I'm depressed. But thank God I'm on serotonin.
Can we move on to some cultural things that I am curious about?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Chris, what is it that you find enjoyable or fun to do? What are basically, this is an old man going, what are the kids up to today?
What are the kids doing today?
What are the kids doing?
I think post-COVID now, whenever we're in that COVID, everybody sat at home.
Well, we're in the new COVID reality, and it's this particular, manifestation.
I think as
people, but people need to find some place to have joy, right? Some people may find it in music. Some people may find it in video games. Some people need to find it in some kind of physical activity. But which I think is really important to mental health, that people do find that time in their life where they at least allow themselves some joy.
I don't know if it's changed. I feel like this is in some way, the trend of what kids are doing is always in the same vein as it was a generation before. It's not the same thing, but it's similar to what it was. So I think a lot of people will, as you said, find stuff in music, video game. I'll sit there and plug myself into a virtual world that means nothing to the rest of my life. And sometimes I'll even sit there going, well, this feels more like a job. But at the same time, it's an avenue of joy, almost a little bit of purpose, as sad as that sounds. And, when you're sitting at home, I think as things are opening back up, a lot of people are going out more. Unfortunately, I know a lot of young people my age find the way that they go out and have fun, especially now that things are opening back up, is going out and finding a way to get drunk or finding a way to get high now that they can with other people again. They don't have to do it on their own. I've been sitting around learning to play guitar and trying to find how I can get a weekend off of work every now and then. But that's
a big part of Gary's and our generation. And Gary, by the way, last night I watched the McCartney thing on Hulu.
Fantastic. McCartney 3-2-1. Yeah. Hey, Chris, you binge watched it, right? I instructed you.
So, but anyhow,
it's fantastic.
The point was that in our generation, there were things that kind of like brought us together. And I think a large part of our generation was brought together by music. Everybody was into music. Literally,
I think that's still true.
Well, that was going to be my question. I don't know, because you get music from different places. Music from TikTok, Spotify, all of these different things. Or, in other words, Gary, when we were in school, in high school, people would come and go, did you hear that, the new Beatles song? Did you get the Beatles album? And you talk about it with people. I'm just wondering if but because we were all kind of sharing those very large groups, whether it was the Stones or whatever. Now there's incredible amount of talent and music out there. And I'm just curious whether or not when you get together with people, are you talking about, musical artists? Because I'm getting my musical artists from this world, whether it's pop radio or
let's go to Chris. Chris, answer that.
Let's go to Chris.
Here's a major difference it's fairly significant. People don't have to, the majority of music that people listen to, that kids listen to, especially that my generation is going to listen to, it's going to be in the car. The music that you get is going to be what Spotify recommended to you. And if you liked a band when you were 10, if they're still making music today, you're probably still getting updated on those albums that they're putting out. I don't think you're going to run into somebody like your main social group or your group of friends. You don't hear somebody go, have you heard the new Local Natives track? Have you bought the Local Natives Hummingbird album or something like that? Instead, it'll be, could you hand me the auxiliary cord? I want to play my playlist in the car. And if you like it, you'll steal that. And you'll say that it's your music now, that you came up with it.
Or you'll dance to it on TikTok. Seriously.
I'm lucky. I don't have one yet. He does.
But now there are more platforms by which to explore and to show your music.
It's unbelievable. I go on TikTok and I'm amazed.
It's a song after a song.
Well, it's the global talent show. And
it's that goddamn watermelon song. What is it?
Don't even.
Watermelon. Everybody thinks they dance well to it.
Yeah.
But anyway, there are more ways to apply your music.
Well, again, it goes back to the fragmented. I guess what I'm driving about all the time is that because we get our news, our information, everything culturally from so many different forces, I think that may have some reason why we're so disconnected as, a country, as a population.
Well, this is an episode unto itself because on one hand, aren't we becoming more connected? Or Chris, your generation, you have so many ways by which to communicate in real time.
A good way. Have either of you seen Bo Burnham, the comedy special? I love him.
Boy, I love that. That was amazing. What a talent.
I think his song halfway through, Welcome to the Internet, the lyric, can I interest you in everything all of the time?
Right.
That's what it is. If you look for it, you'll find it on the internet. Doesn't matter if it's credible. Doesn't matter if you needed it. If you're an anti-vaxxer and you want reason to not get vaccinated, you will find it. Did
you know about Bo Burnham before? I never knew about him.
You introduced me to Bo Burnham when we went to L.A.
Second show. He started out of YouTube, 15 years ago or 10 years ago.
But he's still a kid.
He's 30 now. He's 30 years old.
What a talent. What a talent. I wonder what's going to happen with his career after this.
Well, the whole concept of that most recent special was what? That he had a panic attack 4 years ago, and he said he's going to perform again.
Yeah.
And then he was going to work up the courage to go do another show, and then COVID hit, and he locked himself in his house for a year.
How creative.
Well, look at this. Panic and anxiety has been the thread of the theme of this show. But, here's something that you've heard me say before, Chris. You were talking about McCartney 3-2-1. Well, I'm still fascinated with the Beatles, and obviously lots of people are still fascinated with the Beatles, and we still dig into Beatles songs and do almost a forensic examination of the Beatles story. Well, I experienced the Beatles and Beatlemania, and it was huge, right? No denying that. But I think part of why it was so huge is because we didn't have access to what they had for breakfast in real time and this, that, and the other, and an oversaturation. We had to fantasize about them. You'd get your Beatles songbook, or you'd get your Beatles club magazine would come, and you'd look at pictures and just imagine everything that you now get. Does that make sense to you?
There's no mystery anymore. You are correct.
The Beatles live in me for the simple fact that they were so magical in my life because I obsessed over what are they doing?
Well, today,
how did they do it?
Today, the Beatles would be known as a brand.
They would be known as a brand, and I don't think you will you have big bands and people scream for them. But the phenomenon of something we're talking about 50 years later, I don't know that we're going to see that again.
No, I don't think so. Everything has changed. I'm going through my MTV anniversary thing coming up, and I don't know if MTV. Why would MTV be around 50 years from now?
Yeah, no. I mean, it was a phenomenon in its time, right. And you were there, and I was in New York.
And why should I be around 50 years from now? I don't know. What else? Have you guys seen? Has anybody seen My Octopus Teacher?
Mm-mm.
Oh, God, I wish you guys had, because I would love to talk about that. I'll ask our viewers, everybody check out Octopus Teacher, and then could come check in, because I have some strong opinions about it, but we can go on.
I told Chris that, we'll have you on for 15 minutes. It looks like your
time is up, Chris. Thank you for coming.
Hey, you know what I'm reminded of? We have a sponsor, and I forgot to mention our sponsor. I'm just going to shoehorn it in.
Well, okay.
Well,
no, it's fine. It's just that if I was the sponsor, the first thing I would say I would have turned off the show right off the bat, because he didn't mention the sponsor right off the bat. That's what you're supposed to do.
Here's the beauty of this particular sponsor. It's my company.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm a part of this company.
Oh, okay.
Midwest Studies Group. So if you're out there and you are a nonprofit organization or a not-for-profit organization, Midwest Studies Group does feasibility studies. We do capacity building studies. We help with capital fundraising campaigns, planned giving, all of those ways to increase your capacity to raise money and realize the dreams and goals that your company may have. Anyway, we work with you in all sorts of ways like that. MidwesternStudiesGroup.com. You go to that website, you scroll down, and you will see yours truly. MidwestStudiesGroup.com. You'd think I'd get that right. It's MidwestStudiesGroup.com.
Okay.
He said that when I was in Galena, by the way. He said, I have a new job in the morning. It's called MSG. I said, Madison Square Garden?
Yeah.
What?
That's what I would have thought. Did you go to U.S. Grant's house?
Last time I went to U.S. Grant's house was with
your father, and you were bored out of your mind.
You were bored? I found it fascinating. But I that was amazing. First of all, how short they were. They were all short. All the rooms were small.
Yeah, 5'8" was a tall guy.
I found out the reason you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater is because what would happen is that they would all take a bath once a week, and the bathtub was in the kitchen. And by the way, the house was on a hill, which was really stupid, because they had to go and bring the water in buckets up the hill, dump it into the bathtub, and then they would every Sunday they would line up, and I'm sure it was 5 or 6 or 7 of them, all short, and they one by one would go into the kitchen, they take their bath, and then they would leave, and they would do the baby last. Sounds kind of mean.
So literally, they threw some babies out with bathwater.
They would say, "Oh." And because after they were done, they throw out the bath.
Where's the baby?
Where's the baby?
I was giving them a bath.
That's exactly.
Well, I just threw out the water, honey. Oh, Jesus.
And we think we have problems.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. You're right. They were shorter.
Yes.
Because when I watch epics about, the Romans battling the Carthaginians,
that's right.
These burly soldiers, you'd like to think that they're 6'7". They were
5
like
feet.
4'11".
Yeah, that was
exactly.
It. I know. That's
Julius Caesar was probably 5'2".
Well, that's all revisionist history.
Yeah.
That's all revised history. Yeah.
But I think about that, and I was 5'11" at my tallest, but I'm shrinking.
I'm shrinking as well.
Yeah. I would have been a center on the Carthaginian basketball team.
And when I was growing up, height was and physical virtues didn't seem as important. And we know why they are now, the vanity of our nation. But I'm 5'8". Now, people, when my kids were born, I found them talking about, oh, he's going to be big, he's going to be tall, he's going to be this, oh, he's 6'6". I don't remember even having a thought about how tall I was when I was a kid. I didn't really care. It just was not part of.
I had some tall friends, and I knew they were tall, but I never felt short.
Right, and because I hear parents go, "Oh, he's so tall," in front of other kids.
Yeah.
Oh, look how tall you are, or look how and what you look like. The vanity of on kids today, the pressure to be good looking, and we all see this on all social media, is immense. It was okay in our day to be unattractive, I felt.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Well, but Chris, he's smiling smugly.
And God knows I know about being unattractive.
Well, Chris and his younger brother, I think, is taller than you now. He's got to be.
He is surpassed.
And you're over 6 foot. You're a tall, skinny guy.
Yeah. Well, we live in a world now where romantically, the vanity of dating when you're 20 years old, you're not even considered unless you're above 6 foot.
Yeah.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Hard. If you're not 6 foot or higher, you're
So thank God I'm married, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, by the way, Gary, when we move underground, I don't think it's going to be as important.
It's not going to be as important to be tall.
No, in fact, we'll be at an advantage again.
That's what I'm trying to.
I won't date a guy who's over 5 foot.
Yeah, I can't get into those spaces.
I feel protected.
My girlfriend Julia turned to me the other day, and she said something along that same line of joking. She showed me a post of a girl on Twitter who said, "Do I really like this guy, or is he just 6'5"?
Yo, yes.
Or is he 6'5"? Is that?
I'm glad I don't have to start over.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, I never felt short. I was easily just slightly above average. Most of my friends were maybe a little shorter.
Except for my own vanity, I never really just felt as though it was an issue that anybody could be whatever they wanted to be. It didn't matter whether they were short or tall or heavy or whatever. You just
all the people I admired.
They were who they were, and that was it. Yeah, but now,
Pacino, Dustin Hoffman, De Niro.
Yeah, now everything is. I know why, and I feel for these people who go and get on social media or TikTok or Instagram and anything, and they let themselves out for the public. And then the public, what are they supposed to comment on? They're going to comment on what they say.
Well, right? And I do TikTok every morning. Just a little reflex when I'm.
Is that what you call it now, Gary? TikTok?
That's what he's
calling it. I TikTok in the morning.
Okay.
And I made a comment on Facebook of the vanity of the narcissism of all of these beautiful people dancing, and "Watermelon Sugar" is the song that I never want to hear. Watermelon Sugar, and it's all about sex. It's all about, look how beautiful I am. And all the comments are about how beautiful. So they've monetized simply being beautiful. They're lip syncing, so there's no talent involved. I mean, they can dance, many of them. And it's not just women, it's guys too. But predominantly, it's these classically beautiful, tall, skinny women dancing to Watermelon Sugar.
Right.
Well, my point is simply that you're right. It's it
might be a little bit of a mixed message where they say to men, don't objectify us.
Right.
And then, but unless I need to make a lot of money, unless I need to make money, then I need to be objectified.
It's making the standard, and it's objectifying. And I wonder about those who don't measure up to being over 6 foot, as you said, Chris, and not being this beautiful. What happens to those people? Because there's still more of us.
For sure.
Than you beautiful people.
They don't get the spotlight. It's much like all you see on social media is the best of what somebody wants to show you. You don't see the sadness behind, billionaire Susie who's in the Bahamas every other weekend showing you pictures of the beautiful water. You just see, she gets to go to the Bahamas every weekend. God, I wish I were her. If you're not like that, you don't get the spotlight. You're not monetized.
No. It's tough. Your whole generation should be on antidepressants.
They are.
Hey, we're I don't know. We're going to wrap this up in a second here because we've gone an hour. But Chris, I want to point out what you said earlier because I just thought it was magnificent. How rather than solve issues or world hunger, we've got a few billionaires building rockets going into space for a joyride. And that is a fundamental bastardization of values, isn't it? That's how you see it, isn't it?
Yeah, we have a man. We had my friends would make this joke all the time last year. We have a man. We have a billionaire. We have Jeff Bezos. We have a man in the world who, for every right and reason, should be Batman, but he's not. He could be Batman in a heartbeat, but he isn't. But he's not.
He has more money than Bruce Wayne, doesn't he? By far.
Batman.
In fact, a trillionaire now, right?
Well, by the way, I think that's a great premise for a movie. A guy like Jeff Bezos just decides he's going to try to be Batman.
And he just doesn't have the physical skill.
Right, he's just a fumbling nerd. Acumen. But he wants to be Batman.
But he's got the tools.
He's got the money. But he's just a fumbling. He's just a fumbling fool.
Producer, writer, friends, if not ourselves. That's a great idea, Ken.
Oh, okay.
Just this Jeff Bezos as Batman.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Well, hey, Chris, like I said, we were going to have you on for 15 minutes, but you actually gave us some things to talk about. Ken and I
we're hoping that, Chris, you're going to tell all your friends to subscribe and listen to our podcast, and hopefully and they'll tell their friends, and they'll tell their friends, and the next thing you know.
Are we on for pizza tonight? Are you working tonight?
I still do not know. I don't believe so.
All right. Well, that determines how I have dinner.
Plug for the podcast, though, and where can they find you?
Thank you for asking, Chris. iTunes, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as well as our own YouTube channel.
Are we on Pornhub?
Pornhub, and Pornhub. But also, I want to point out that DBNA, which is a streaming TV service, DBNA TV, we're on at midnight Eastern time. And that's actually blowing up. So you can find us at any one of those places. And we have a Facebook presence, too. So if you forgot any of those things, go find The Gary and Kenny Show on Facebook.
I need you just to say goodnight. Yes.
Thank you for watching The Gary and Kenny Show. Join us at all those places that I told you about. And we will see you next time. And thank you to my son, Chris Kroeger. And always to you.
Thanks, Chris.
Kenneth Seisler, out there in Pumpkin Country.